Hey, hello, howdy, how you doing? Welcome to another Project Zomboid video. I've been getting a ton of requests for something like this, so today I'm going to show you my first attempt at taking on a much requested challenge to survive 100 days in Knox County with sprinter zombies. Now, I'm playing on Apocalypse difficulty with the only changes being transmission set to saliva only and the zombie speed set to sprinters. I feel like it's worth noting at this point that the saliva only setup is just how I like to play the game, and honestly with sprinters, that really doesn't matter since if one gets you, well, you're basically a dead man anyway. For traits, I went with thin-skinned, high thirst, slow healer, underweight, claustrophobic, prone to illness, smoker, weak stomach, slow reader, and Sunday driver for negatives. For the positives, I went with the burglar occupation, cat's eyes, dexterous, outdoorsman, runner, fast learner, organized, stout, and athletic. Alright, getting into things, this is Leaky Bum, a handsome lad who's insanely fit and strong, but has no other redeemable qualities other than some stats in his agility categories. Luckily for me, we spawned in a pretty good location in Rosewood. We have a corner house that's at least partially fenced in, so we can hit zombies as they jump over the fence, making this much more tolerable. That being said, anything over 2 zombies at a time is pretty much a death sentence, so the goal is going to be to try and pick off zombies one at a time in the surrounding vicinity, at least until the immediate area is cleared. As with all things in survival games, the immediate needs can be categorized into food, water, and shelter. I've got the shelter part covered with this house that we should be relatively safe in, at least for now. Water is something I shouldn't have to worry about for another week or 2 at least, since power is still on, which leaves food. I could get most of my food from looting the houses nearby, but that'll become increasingly more difficult as I'll have to keep traveling further away, leading to a larger risk of stumbling into a horde of sprinters, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I did manage to find a shotgun and a rifle, although they won't be much use to me at the moment since shooting a shotgun right now will get me killed literally before I can rack the next shell. So one thing that I completely overlooked when I was planning all this out was that panic prevents you from sleeping. Couple that with the claustrophobic trait, and I have to sleep on the couch like a drunk stepdad. Since it took me forever to figure out that I could sleep on the couch, I ended up waking up in the early evening and decided to just pass the time in the house reading some of the skill books and magazines that I collected on the first day. I started off day 3 by building enough courage to leave my home. Luckily for me, a lot of the zombies have migrated away from the area and I was able to check out the school. I started off by looting the cafeteria for any meat that was available, before heading back to drop it off at my house. This was the first of many runs. Basically, what I'd do was head to the school, grab just enough shit to not be encumbered, and then run all the way back to my little house across the street and stockpile it there. By the end of the day, I was able to come away with a ton of books and a backpack, so we're chalking that up as a win. Day 4 was more exploring, this time to the south. This was probably the farthest I've actually gone away from my home so far, and the entire experience was extremely anxiety-inducing. I was able to loot a couple more houses and find some useful items in the closets and sheds like hammers, nails, and a screwdriver. The whole time though, I was just sitting there praying I never opened a door to a house alarm, because let's be honest, it's only a matter of time. And if that doesn't kill me, the helicopter event sure as hell will. There's only one way I can think of to avoid certain death with that, and it all depends on my carpentry ability. Well, that or the ability to find a sledgehammer. Day 5 was pretty exciting. I started off by looting one of the houses to the north before dealing with 3 zombies that had lingered from an earlier grouping. After that, I moved on to my first day of actual combat, and what I mean by that is it was my first day of actively seeking out fights. There's a pretty nice isolated farm to the east, and that's where I was targeting as my first main safe house, at least as a backup to get me through a helicopter event. I headed out to the fields behind my house and slowly started working my way through zombies roaming around one at a time. There's still no way I can take on more than 2 zombies at a time right now, and if we're being honest with ourselves, even 2 is pushing it considering it only takes 1 to grab. After clearing out a decent chunk of them, they started bunching up, so I decided not to risk it anymore and headed back for the day. A lot of dealing with sprinters in the early game is a mixture of just getting lucky and being patient. A big hatred that I have with sprinters is the fact that I force myself to play by audio, more to try and pick up cues as to where they might be hiding, which inevitably results in me being jump scared every single time. Anyway, maximizing all of my time is incredibly important at this stage. Since I have slow reader, it's not feasible for me to spend days just reading books right now. So I tried to focus on reading chunks of the first books of shows that aired on Life and Living so that I could get an easy 2 or 3 levels into those core skills like crafting, cooking, farming, foraging. Additionally, every night I spend about an hour or two running sprints in my backyard to start putting levels into sprinting. That'll be important if I ever find myself in a less than ideal situation. Aside from that mini tangent right there, I picked up where I left off on day 6, slowly and methodically picking off zombies to make my way to the farmhouse. I was able to make it into the farmhouse, but there's still a couple groups of zombies hanging around. I didn't want to risk spending the night here, so I headed back to my house for the night and started packing up my gear for the big move. The next morning, I cleared out a couple zombies in the woods before making my way to the farmhouse when it happened. I did the only thing I could think of and dropped all my heavy gear, grabbed the shotgun, and prepared to die. Luckily, and I have no idea how this happened, no zombies came near me until after the event ended. I decided to leave the dropped items there and continue working my way to the farm, taking out a couple stragglers along the way. Now, the front of the farmhouse was occupied by a larger group of zombies, so I couldn't do much here. And the field that I just walked through is now infested with zombies coming from this direction, so there's no going back. I moved what I brought with me to the upstairs bedroom and decided to just take the rest of the day to hide out upstairs while I waited around the zombies to move out. The heli event was one of my biggest fears I had coming into this challenge, so to get it out of the way early and with a great result was a huge win for me, even if I was stuck in this room for the next day or two. That being said, I can't sleep because of the panic, and this farmhouse doesn't have a room that I can reduce it in for some reason, despite being larger than my shelter house, so I guess I'll be working on my agility skills in the meantime. Around mid-morning, I had the idea of building out a small platform so that I could sleep on the ground out there, but as soon as I built one out, it alerted the zombies in the area, who came knocking on the doors. I chose to hide in the closet again. Some might say I was trapped in the closet. After several hours, I decided to try again in the office room and was able to finally go to sleep. I have no idea how the zombies haven't broken in yet. They've been going at it for hours and have destroyed more in less time, so this really didn't make sense to me. Took them out and started working my way through some of the stragglers hanging out in the field. After spending an hour or two on that, I decided that my time would be better spent looting the nearby houses to build out a mini bedroom on the second floor. What started as a day of optimism faded rather drastically when I realized that the water had shut off, which means no more infinite water. Whatever, we'll deal with that later. There's still a ton of sinks and bathtubs and toilets to drink out of. For now, we need a place to sleep. Since I dropped my saw in the chaos of the helicopter vent, I only had hammers, meaning I could only disassemble beds and doors. Luckily for me, I didn't need much, just a few planks to build out the flooring a little better so that I could move a chair out here to sleep on. It wasn't until around 1 p.m. when I realized I could tear up the flooring in the living room and use that for extra planks. So now we have a definitive bedroom upstairs. Well, maybe not. Looks like I was just picking up the tiles, not the planks. Don't mind me, I'm just a dumbass. And this is why you run the outdoorsman trait. Never have to worry about sleeping in the rain. Might be the most blue-collar shit I've ever done in all my PC playthroughs, to be honest. Anyway, I finally grabbed all the shit I dropped a few days back during the helicopter event and brought it back to the farmhouse. I'll be good on food for a while, but it'd be nice to find some seeds so that I can get a garden going here at some point. I took a shot in the dark and headed out for a small shed on the northeastern side of the fields and found a weapons locker with a Desert Eagle inside, which made my day. 3 boxes of ammo, too. I can't wait to stroll back into Rosewood to hit at the police station with this bad boy. I also checked a car wreck out front and noticed that the car still had some fuel in it, which was a huge bonus since we need a way to turn on a generator to get fuel from a gas station whenever we get one. But here I go thinking 3 steps ahead again. At the end of the day though, we're doing way better than I thought I was going to do with this. I spent the day formulating a plan for the future. We're 10 days in at this point, and at this rate, we'd probably be good for another 10 or so by just sitting around the farmhouse waiting to die, and that's not the goal. We'll need more supplies, a generator, a book on how to use said generator, and then fuel. Lots and lots of fuel. Day 11 consisted of me heading back to my starter base and grabbing all the gear that I'd left behind, which was mainly just skill books and a ton of food, but still worth it. The only real risk with it came on the return journey since I was encumbered and after not paying attention almost click-walked directly into 3 zombies, which would have killed me since I couldn't even make it back to the farm without becoming excessively exerted. Gonna have to pay better attention going forward, and also clear out the zombies still lingering around. On day 12, I wanted to take advantage of the fog, so I set out to hit up the 2 sheds in my area to search for a generator. First one was pretty close by and I didn't run into any zombies, but no luck on the generator. The second shed was next to the military camp and was littered with groups of zombies. I picked off a couple stragglers and was able to stealth my way through the area until reaching the shed. Didn't find a generator here either, but I did walk away with some more short blunt weapons and a couple attachments for my gun collection. After clearing out 5 zombies that wandered into the farm, I spent the rest of the day working on sprinting. The following day, I hit up the cluster of houses to the south of me. There was one shed there that a generator could spawn in, but I was more focused on the resources I could get from the houses. I almost ended the run after pulling a group of zombies over, but got incredibly lucky and was able to take them out seemingly 1 or 2 at a time since they kept tripping over nothing. Seriously, can't stress enough how lucky I got here. After spending the day looting, I came back with a ton of food and the Herbalist magazine, which allows me to identify if any plants are poisonous and helps me identify any medical plants for use in emergency situations. Overall, a huge win for me. On day 14, I headed back into Rosewood to start searching through garages for generators. This was a pretty brutal day for combat. I cleared a couple zombies out, but took some damage in the process after getting jump scared rounding a corner. I did find a generator in the evening, but it was going to be a huge haul to get it back to the farm. This is where those levels into sneaking and light-footed really paid off, and I was able to make it back to base around midnight with the generator. Now all I need is some fuel and a magazine. The next day I headed back to the Rosewood school to see if the generator book was there. I was able to find carpentry level 2, but no generator mag. Regardless, I got back to the farm in the afternoon and spent the rest of the day reading through the magazines I'd collected, as well as carpentry level 2. On day 16, I went out on an adventure to the farmhouses across the highway, where I found another shotgun, Beretta, and a shit ton of food to keep me going. The only thing I'm worried about right now is the generator magazine, and the fact that I'm out of cigarettes, and down to like 15 sticks of nicotine gum. Typically, I'll be able to find cigs at a gas station. The only problem with that being that there's no way every gas station isn't absolutely infested. Distracting myself from that for now, I spent day 17 foraging until I was able to make 2 stone axes and proceeded to cut down some of the trees nearby to work on carpentry some more. I needed to build out some rain collectors and wanted to build out the 2nd floor so I wasn't sleeping under the stars anymore. Day 18 was spent building out the 2nd floor platform some more, before spending the rest of the day disassembling items in the surrounding houses. I needed to hit carpentry 4 to craft rain collectors, and the faster I do that, the easier life will be. I finally leveled up to carpentry 4 the next day and was able to build up 1 rain collector, but I was happy with it. I finished off the day by digging furrows for my garden. Now all I had to do was wait for it to rain to plant my crops. On day 20, I organized all of my shit into various piles. After that, I pounded out my first reloading level to see how long it would take if I actually got caught in a sticky situation. Day 21 was one of those super foggy days that's great for stealth missions in a town. Taking advantage of the situation, I decided to scout out the area to see how close I could get to one of the nearby gas stations. Unfortunately for me, the fog dissipated as soon as I got into the woods, so I decided to hang out by the fencing and just shout to pull in nearby zombies. When I got back to the farm, I planted my carrots and then spent the rest of the day reading some of the skill books. I kicked off day 22 by rounding out the next sprinting level, before heading back into Rosewood to work on some more combat. Still focusing on pulling 1 to 2 at a time, but the only way to get to the point where we can take on more is by thinning out the area before diving in. When I got back that night, I decided to pound out the next carpentry book. I finished up the book on day 23 and spent the afternoon working my way down to the warehouses below the military camp to my southeast, which really just ended up turning into me taking on some more zombies in the area. I got insanely lucky again with sprinters tripping when I was taking on 2 at the same time, so chalk up another win for me. Following day, I started off by foraging for chipped stones so that I can make some more axes. By early afternoon, I had changed focus to chopping down some trees nearby so that I could start better organizing all the junk into crates instead of just piles of shit on the floor. By the end of the day, I had crates for food, tools, crafting, medical supplies, books, and weapons. And now that that's taken care of, we can start focusing on bigger things. I need to work on that whole aiming and reloading thing if I want to have any shot at actually surviving long term here. The plan was actually pretty simple. I had a Desert Eagle and a ton of ammo, so I'd try to find a single zombie, sneak up behind it until I was in range, and then blast it. That would usually draw in 1 or 2 more, and I'd take them out as well. And after testing that on some zombies, I noticed it was pretty quiet around me and figured I'd try my luck by going to the Rosewood fire station. Luckily for me, most of the zombies in the area had migrated out. I cleaned up a few hanging around and was able to make my way inside, where there were a few more waiting for me. After looting the firehouse, I took a look at the cars outside and noticed the taxi had some fuel in it. I was able to hotwire it and drive it back to my house in Rosewood. Fortunately, it wasn't fast because I chose Sunday driver, but I could still use to transport my gear whenever I decided to move. When I got back to base, I noticed a few zombies hanging around and figured now would be a good chance to switch to the shotgun and take them out. The farmhouse isn't as safe as I thought it was going to be. And don't get me wrong, it's a great option for now, but every time more than like 3 zombies walk over, it's a death sentence waiting to happen. I was able to find an axe at the fire station, and although it wasn't in perfect condition, was able to get some use out of it today. After cutting down some more trees, I decided I was going to make a trek back into Rosewood to work on my aiming some more. I figured the school was the best place to do that, which is the most American thing I probably could have said here. But I figured the fencing would make it at least the easiest place to guard myself. I could escape into the school if needed, and just had a lot more room to work with overall. I walked away from today having taken an absolute beating and decided to spend the rest of the day reading some more of my skilling books. I had a complete fuck up moment on the morning of day 27. I built out 7 traps to catch some rabbits with to get a more consistent food supply that I could pair with the carrots, and chose a section up the road from me that I could access pretty easily. The only issue is that I don't have any bait to set them with, so that plan's on hold for now. And today was pretty quiet outside of that. I spent a lot of the day building out additional fencing so that I could bait zombies back here and clear them out much easier. It worked something like this: a 10 by 10 square with indents made at 5 tiles in, so that you had 4 squares inside the space. That way, you could keep jumping over fencing and any zombies that were chasing you would fall over multiple times, giving you time to do things like reload, aim, and get an extra swing in, or get a couple chances at a one-on-one. Think of it like a giant 4-square setup. The setup is simple enough that it'll work for any cluster, and can be easily expanded since you can just add another layer to the exterior. And I finished most of it today and had plans to wrap the rest of it up tomorrow. That was until I woke up and saw how foggy it was. Fully healed at this point, I decided to take advantage of the fog and head back into Rosewood with hopes of getting back to the police station. There was a small cluster out front, but I was able to get past them by baiting them over 1 or 2 at a time, with a little luck on my side as well. First thing I did was check on the desks for any cigarettes or matches and lighters before looking for any zombies stuck inside with the hopes of grabbing a key off of one of them. I was prepared to have to break the armory doors down if necessary, but was really hoping I wouldn't have to come to that. I did find a key on the last zombie in the building coincidentally, and was able to walk away with a couple shotguns, an M77, a couple M9 mags, 8 boxes of 9mm, 4 boxes of shotgun shells, and 6 boxes of 308. I threw an ACOG sight in the M77 as well. I'm hoping I can use that to really level my aiming from a distance without putting myself in too much danger. One last piece I came away with was a 9mm silencer, which I threw on the Beretta. Day 29 was spent entirely fighting zombies, which feels so damn good to say. I wanted to test out my new toys and didn't have to look far. Found a pretty big horde hanging out on one of the trails leading back to the city and got to work. Realized pretty early on that the M77 kinda sucks, at my level at least, and relied almost entirely on the Beretta. I used the fencing to trip up any zombies and give me more time to aim. When there were only 1 or 2, I'd switch to melee, but tried to stick with guns for the most part. Now I'll let the majority of this play out sped up so that you can get a feel for all that goes into fighting sprinter zombies, even with the suppressed weapon. I had a couple close calls, including one when I was on my way back to base, feeling way too cocky and almost click walked directly into a group. I was able to sprint it to my half-built trap in time and take them out. That was probably one of the closest calls I've had so far. I spent days 30 and 31 wrapping up building on the square trap. Progress was a little slower than I thought it'd be, just due to the amount of planks it took, which I underestimated. Because of that, I would spend a few hours foraging for more chipped stones and making axes, and then cutting down trees, sawing logs, and repeating that until the construction wrapped up. The only downside to this is that I fucked up my shin jumping over the fence, so I decided to take it easy on day 32 and spend the day burning through all my skill books that I'd lying around in my little makeshift base. On day 33, I decided to try and make my way through a little more Rosewood. I started off by looting some of the houses. Eventually, tried to move on to the main road, but there were just too many clusters hanging around. I was able to pull one into the police station and slowly work through them, but I wasn't willing to risk much more than that. So I decided to head back to base and water my carrots. They're ready for harvest now, but I want to wait until I can get some seeds from them so I can end up with a massive supply for my traps. The next day, I decided to head out to the gas station to the south end of the city. The game plan was pretty simple. I hopped in the taxi and did a drive-by in the gas station, blaring the horn, then pulled a ton out into the outskirts near a fence. From there, I pulled a horde into the fence line and cleaned them out as they walked up to me. As I worked my way up, I kept trying to pull one at a time since one is really no problem. In cases where I pulled 2 to 3, I'd just turn and sprint until one fell over and then try to either kill that one or focus on taking on the other sprinter. Basically, any way I could figure out how to turn a fight into a one-on-one situation, I would take it. Eventually, I was able to work my way through to the bus stop where I pulled the zombies hanging around at the gas station and was able to methodically take them out. After that was taken care of, I was finally able to loot the gas station. I didn't get to walk away with the freezer outside, or the semi sitting out front, but I did manage to grab a ton of cigs and water bottles, which, again, another huge win for me. I spent the next 3 days working on leveling my sprinting skills so that I could finally start to outrun zombies. I've been able to pretty much keep pace with them until now, so while it doesn't look like much, it's a potential game changer. Anyway, with what was left of the day, I harvested 1 set of carrots and armed 5 traps for use. On day 38, I spent a lot of time just reorganizing my storage crates. I also grabbed 3 rabbits for my traps, but remembered I still needed fuel for the generator and a magazine in order to operate it. That'd be my next goal. I started off day 39 by harvesting my carrots and using the seeds to plant some more. Then came the big challenge. I grabbed a gas can and headed down to the wrecked car to my east, where I siphoned a full can of gas. From there, I picked up the generator and made my way back to the taxi. This doesn't sound difficult, but I was full panic the whole time since I was exerted and a small horde had gathered at the house next door. Luckily for me, by the time I rested up, they had moved out, and I was able to get to the taxi and head back to the gas station in the south. Looks like the gas station was swarmed at some point, but there were hundreds just hanging out around it, so I went with the previous method of pulling a shit ton of them with the taxi, driving out to the fencing and baiting them in. There's no less than like 10 moments here where the run should have ended, but there's this bug with sprinters where when they try to grab you, they'll like trip over each other, thus making it impossible to be grabbed while you're running like this. Kind of like the stumble animation I've shown on streams before. Anyway, I'll let a lot of this play out in full so that you can also experience the heart attack inducing anxiety this caused me. I continued doing basically the exact same thing until around 9:30 before retreating back to one of the farmhouses behind me for the night. It wasn't worth pushing in while I was tired and hungry, and it'd be much easier to take on tomorrow. I woke up the next morning and got right back into the thick of it. A lot of the day was spent doing this, to be honest, just pulling groups of zombies, sprinting back to the fence, and cleaning them out. And my personal favorite part of the day came at around 5:30 p.m. when I finally cleared out a decent chunk of the gas station, grabbed the generator, laid it down, and I forgot I never found a generator mag to use the Jenny. I headed back to base defeated because I was over it and figured we'd try again another day. On day 41, I decided to trek back into the heart of Rosewood. There's a bookstore downtown, and with the school library being looted, it's now my best bet to find a generator magazine. The only problem with this is there's a shit ton of zombies literally everywhere. I packed a couple water bottles and a few days worth of food, a couple boxes of ammo, some extra melee weapons, and headed back in. I picked the neighborhood as the safest path for me since there were so many fenced in yards that I could use to trip up any hordes I walked into. My morning mostly consisted of me clearing out a couple blocks as I walked down the road. The goal today wasn't to get to the bookstore, or even the main street for that matter. I just wanted to get a little FOB set up in one of these houses that I could use as a safety net while I was here. It's also really funny to me how a simple trip to a bookstore, which is like an afternoon in a normal playthrough, is essentially a multi-day escapade with sprinters. By the afternoon, I was tired, and the neighborhoods were becoming much more dense. Felt like I couldn't go more than 2 houses without seeing at least a cluster of like 5 or more zombies hanging around. I wasn't willing to risk anything crazy here, so I found a house that I could get into, and luckily didn't trigger an alarm. After clearing it out, I settled into an upstairs bedroom and updated my map. Dropped most of my food and extra loot here that I'd accumulated from house hopping throughout the day, took some beta blockers, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to find a group gathered around the front door. I tried to take them on, but there were just too many to deal with, so I fled out the back door. My goal for today was to clear out this neighborhood just a little bit more to make it safer for me. I'm getting more comfortable fighting sprinters now, and the fenced-in backyards were only more of an ego booster for me. It turns out, killing a couple sprinters easily goes to your head, and after getting a bit too cocky, I decided to push into the main road way before I was ready. Seeing a few decent-sized hordes in front, the plan was to bait them all into the white fence to my right and slowly pick them off, much like I did at the gas station previously. As we all know, all my plans are always executed perfectly with no issues. The rest is history. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with 42 days. This was my first real experience with the sprinters only playthrough, and I didn't expect to get nearly this far. I feel like with some more planning and a considerable amount of luck, I could hit 100 days. So let me know if you want to see another attempt at this. As always, thank you to my YouTube members who make it possible for me to try out new video ideas like this. If you'd like to support the channel, you can join for as little as $1 a month and unlock a ton of cool perks and bonuses like early access to videos, early access to our Project Zomboid server, exclusive gear on our Project Zomboid server, and over 20 videos exclusive to members. You can join via the link down in the description or by clicking that join button at the bottom of this video. Let me know what I should have done differently, or if there's any other challenges that you'd like to see me try out. And as always, thanks for stopping by.